Hello everyone, I am Avantika Mohan, the Community Lead for Sustainability at BW Business World. And today we have with us Ms. Rinika Grover from Apollo Tyres. Rinika is the Head for Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility at Apollo and has been here for over 9 years. She has driven the Sustainability Management Framework initiative and has also worked extensively in the area of healthcare for the trucking community, solid waste management and sanitation. You've also worked for the underprivileged women and biodiversity. Apollo Tyres, as we all know, is an Indian multinational tyre manufacturer, and it ranks among the top 20 tyre manufacturers in the world. We're extremely lucky to have you here with us today, Rinika.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So with that, I come to my first question for you. We know that sustainability has taken the center stage and it has gained a lot of momentum in the recent times. It sure does bring a lot of challenges with it for the businesses. What do you think are those challenges, and if you could shed light on that with the lens of Apollo?
Sure. I mean, you rightly said sustainability has taken the center stage, and it has been one of the pivotal areas for Apollo as well. So if I talk about in terms of how it's shaped up in Apollo, so I kind of just give a bit of a context. For Apollo, we have a Vision 2026, and for that we have got 5 drivers, and sustainability is one of the drivers for growth in Apollo for our Vision 2026. Saying that, and of course, when we talk about sustainability, and you just started with saying that it's taken the center stage, it's a very complex term because it's kind of really vast and huge, and there is an interplay of various terminologies. If you talk about biodiversity, sustainable consumption, production, supply chain, sustainable investing, so it's huge, and it's kind of it's also evolving. So what we've done in Apollo is we've tried to embrace each one, and we have a sustainable management framework around that. While saying that, we're also looking at overall sustainability. We look at various kind of sustainable, the upcoming legislations as well. So one has to be mindful of that, but also along with that, we're looking at sustainable strategies for our business. Now, when we're talking about challenges, so what we do is we don't see these as challenges, but we see these as opportunities. And I'll kind of talk you through a couple of those, because that's where we have been looking at in our framework also. We've looked at those, and that's how our framework is developed. So when we talk about issues or challenges that the world's experiencing, so one that comes to my mind and everyone's talking about is natural resources.
Right.
So there is a limited pool of natural resources, and every year you see that Earth's Shoot Day, which is the humanity's dependency on ecological services, is surpassing the Earth to replenish that within a year. So every year the World Earth Shoot Day is coming sooner and sooner. So it's obviously talking a lot about what's happening in the world where we have limited resources. Yeah. So seeing that as a challenge, we know I'm talking about now in context of Apollo Tyres, natural rubber, which is one of the key product mix for us. It's absolutely a key resource for our product. So we're talking about natural rubber when you look at overall production. So the automobile industry basically consumes 70% of the total natural rubber across. Right. So that's where the demand is kind of moving towards, and it's known to kind of meet the demand. The supply has to grow multifold.
Definitely.
And that means basically you're looking at increasing hectares and of rubber plantation. Now, how does that happen? Because obviously it just can't be straight, immediately. So what we've done is, what Apollo has done is, we have formulated some cross-sectoral partnerships.
Okay.
So we've partnered with ATMA, which is Automobile Tire Manufacturing Association, where you have other tire companies as well on board, and with the Rubber Board of India, and we are planting over 200,000 hectares of rubber plantation in India.
Okay.
So obviously that's definitely going to take care in the future. It's going to take care of it, and that's one side. So we joined a global platform for sustainable natural rubber very early, and we're in fact leading the India chapter. So working with the smallholder farmers to see how we can ensure that there is the land that we are growing natural rubber on is not deforested. They pay, the labor is paid the fair wages.
Yes.
All of that is taken into account because we have made a commitment. So it's a slow process. It's not something that's going to happen straight away, but we're working towards it. The second one is about the consumer demands, and you know that there is an ongoing consumer demand. There's changing. Consumers are very conscientious about the green product. So what we have looked at is that, of course, as a responsible organization, we've looked at what exactly we can do. So we have looked at having 40% of sustainable raw material in our product mix by 2030, which is aligned with the European Green Deal as well, because we're a global organization.
Right.
So we try and align our commitments. But it's not just about commitment, it's how do we meet that. So there are lots of pilots that are being conducted by us to increase the recycle material so that we can show that we're embracing circular economy in our life cycle, but also using biomaterials so that just the whole concept is not just on paper, but it's implemented as well. And we've here also we're looking at some kind of cross-sector partnerships. We have one which is basically how we devulcanize rubber in a non-chemical manner and use the recycled content back into our product. Okay. So these are the kind of things that are going on. So I thought I'd just kind of highlight that it's not just a challenge. There are challenges, yes, but how we embrace and how we take this as an opportunity is what we're implementing.
That's absolutely true. So Rinika, with that I come to my next question, and I want to know what is the long-term vision that Apollo Tyres has for sustainability, and what's the strategy that you've adopted, and how are you contributing to the sustainable goals, and what are the different measures that you're taking to ensure that these efforts are in line with those goals and targets?
Sure, it's quite a lot of questions, so but I'll try and answer and frame it. So in terms of the long-term vision, if I talk about, so basically when we talk about sustainability across the organization, so it's not just limited to within the organization.
Right.
We take it in terms of how we implement it across the value chain as well, because value chain is an extended part of our business, and that's how we've been implementing it. And our vision overall is aligned with the global goals. So in terms of, and I'll just kind of talk you through this. So one of the main thing which the whole world is grappling with is climate change, and there is a goal which is to be net zero by 2050. So what we've done is our work in our climate change vertical is aligned to what the global goals talk about as well. Saying that, I would just kind of go a little back and then talk about in terms of what the overall Apollo sustainability management framework is. So, we everywhere you hear about environment, social, governance indicators, and there is a lot of talk around that. So we have looked at various indicators, and we have developed our own framework, which basically encapsulates all the indicators work that's happening across. There's benchmarking that's been done. And we have 6 areas that we work in our framework to 2026. So there's 6 areas is sustainability governance, climate change, circular economy, value chain, people, and CSR. So all 6 matter to us equally, and there is a lot of significance that's given to all 6 of them. And the indicators that we've kind of looked at, all the indicators around environment, social governance, they're somewhere or the other linked to that.
Okay.
And all the 6 pillars of or 6 areas in our sustainability management framework are also aligned with Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay.
So wherever there is a clear linkage, we have that. Wherever there is, somewhere like it's impacting, but it's not directly impacting, we look at measuring those as well. But most of those, we've got about 12 where there is a direct impact out of the 17 SDGs. And coming back to in terms of, I was talking to you about the 6 pillars. 6 pillars we also have through our pieces or through our work, we've actually made some kind of global commitments as well, and I'll kind of give you an example on a few. So I mentioned to you about climate change.
Right.
So climate change is one of our critical pillars. There is a strategy that's being driven. There is a cross-functional team across Apollo that's driving it. But we've made commitments in climate change as well with how to reduce emissions, because decarbonization for us is required, given the fact that we've actually made a commitment of being carbon neutral by 2050, which is aligned with the European Green Deal. So we've said that if we have to be carbon neutral by 2050, so we have to have a decarbonization roadmap, and that leads to the emission side. We're looking at reducing emissions not within our manufacturing locations, but outside as well. So we're not looking at scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, but we're looking at scope 3, which is the value chain emissions as well. Saying that, I've actually got the elephant out of the room in the room, because it's a difficult task. Definitely. And it's an uphill task, I would say. So that's one. In the commitments that one of the commitments that we have made in the climate change vertical. We've also looked at, like when we talk about people vertical, which is another area for us. So we are constantly looking at how we can improve our DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And there also we made some commitments of increasing, at the moment it's increasing female participation, but obviously it goes far more and beyond. Definitely. But that's something we're looking at as well. And your other question was, if I recall, because you had like a series of those.
Well, I can repeat if you want.
No, that's fine. You also had something on the lines of monitoring and evaluation. Yes. So I would just say that, back like very, very initial years when we embarked on the journey of sustainability, we looked at how we need to have a robust governance structure in place, so that it's not just, there is a decision making which is transparent, but it's not just top down, but it's like bottoms up as well. So what we have here is a sustainability steering committee, which is represented by all the senior management members of Apollo, and sustainability department acts as a secretarial to it. So we have a remit to meet every quarter. There are certain decisions that are taken, minuted. There is a huge, long process. And within that, once there is that work kind of is shaped up, then of course we have within the pillars, we have working groups as well, which are cross-functional working groups. Okay. So there is back and forth of conversations, and sometimes some of the areas it's not possible to meet those commitments, and then those are taken back, because obviously we just need to be a little mindful and realistic as well. So it's a two-way approach, but that's something we've put, and we actually monitor our commitments every 6 months. So we made the commitments globally last year. Every 6 months we have a review with the committees to see where exactly we are with the units, plants, locations, wherever, whoever is involved, to see where we are and if there is any course correction that's required. So that's the overall process of how we are monitoring and managing towards our goals that we have committed ourselves to.
Rinika, I want to, before we jump to carbon neutrality, I want to ask you one thing. How is the sustainability agenda driven within the employees at Apollo? How are you engaging with them?
It's a very pertinent question. So in terms of, like when we were talking about the governance side, how the steering committee we formulated, I think it's very important to ensure that whatever is being driven and whatever is being constituted in the committee and the work that's happening in the cross-functional teams is cascaded as well to the employees. And of course, there's feedback mechanism, in the other way as well. So what we've been doing is, of course, across the organization, we have been conducting lots of workshops, and that started last year, and this year is kind of really ramped up. These workshops are awareness workshops across the ESG parameters, what parameters we are adhering to in terms of, because these are huge. So we've identified, there is a checklist. We are talking through various workshops, the significance of each of the parameters that we are contributing towards, and what does it mean for each department, because sustainability is not just one department's job, whose title is sustainability. It's actually
a collaborative effort.
Absolutely. So it's across the organization, so everybody has an equal contribution towards it. So we do a lot of workshops with regards to that. There is something that we are launching very soon within the organization, is a sustainability module, which would actually engage people, and it has some kind of quiz questions as well. And it's just not about sustainability, it's climate change as well, because we're very, very focused on meeting our commitments and aspiration, which is like what I spoke about, carbon neutrality. So it starts with employees, and it's also, we're going to talk about what employees individually can do.
Yeah.
So that module is going to be out very soon, and I know it won't go very well because there is a pass percentage over there as well, but that's always going to be a tough one, I guess. So that's the other bit. The other area that we've already started to look at and raising awareness amongst our employees is we're launching a sustainability AV, which talks about the 5 stages of the tire, and at each stage what exactly is Apollo's contribution and where exactly what Apollo is, and what are we doing in all the areas. So the life cycle, and then how we are contributing towards it. One last thing I'd like to highlight is basically that's still in very, very nascent stages, is the ideation platform. So what we have is, we have an ideation platform where anyone in the organization could ideate and could talk about what they feel they want to bring up on sustainability, put it on the platform, and there is a CFT, a cross-functional team, who assesses it and works out whether it's the feasibility, in terms of implementing it.
Right.
And then it kind of is dovetailed with the overall sustainability strategy of the organization and initiatives. So that's something we've thought through, and we've only recently started, and that's also going to be upcoming very soon. So overall, I think it's just a holistic view where we're seeing that it's not just top down, it's actually how employees take it, and they are very, they're also very conscious of the environment, and they're also, on similar lines, thinking as the organization is.
So Renika, you've talked about carbon neutrality, and given that tire manufacturing has significant environmental impacts, how is Apollo ensuring that it can minimize that impact on the environment through its operations and even through its products?
Sure. So within the organization, we've been looking at the entire footprint overall, and you've spoken about we've spoken about carbon neutrality and decarbonization roadmap. We see it as in terms of 3 areas. One is our impact on environment indicators. So within that, we're looking at emission and water specifically.
Right.
So within environment, when we talk about emission and water, emission, we're looking at not just within our boundary, which is the manufacturing side of it, reducing emissions by increasing our renewable energy, to total energy contribution. So we've also been looking at how we can increase our renewable energy mix. So our renewable energy mix was about 9.7% to total power share, but now last year it's increased to 14%, and next year there is an incremental increase we see to about 21-22%. I'm just giving you figures because obviously the year hasn't closed, but that's the aspiration. And at the end, by 2026, we see that reaching a point about 30%, because that's where we would like to go to. So that's one side. The other bit is, alongside when we're looking at emissions within our manufacturing locations, also how we can be energy efficient. One side is, of course, the legislations, make you do certain kind of things, because in Europe you have this energy efficiency directive where there is a legislation mandate that you have to reduce your energy consumption by X%, and it varies for different countries. So we have operation in Netherlands, we have operation in Hungary, it differs. In India, with the new the PAT scheme, where tire industry, is going to be a part of it, or is a part of it in the next cycle. We will have certain commitments to make as well, and certain where we have to reduce our energy. So that's one side of the thing, that we have to look at reducing energy. But the other side is also in terms of not just going through the legislation, but just doing it on our own as well. So there are a lot of initiatives that we in-house undertake to reduce energy consumption so that our emission footprint is lowered. That's the overall when I'm talking about the manufacturing setup. One thing which we have been looking, and we've been working extensively on, that is our value chain emissions. Because value chain emissions is, or so to speak, the scope 3 emissions it's called. It's a huge piece of work. It's not something which is like, done immediately. So we don't have commitments in there, but we have been working. So I can give you a couple of examples. We've been looking at looking at electrification of the last mile delivery slowly. We've also joined a cross collaboration with World Economic Forum and Niti Aayog on a pilot that's been run. So recently we just did that as well. So these are the things that we are doing in terms of energy emission and reducing our emissions. The other bit is also, when I talk about environment, water, which is also a significant piece of work that we've undertaken. So we have here also made commitments of improving our water withdrawal intensity. Here within the plant, what are the initiatives that we can take, where there is rainwater harvesting, and these are like initiatives which everybody undertakes. But one thing which we have started to look at extensively is around our plants. We're also looking at water bodies. And this is basically again dovetailed with our work in CSR, where we look at water bodies and how we can actually do restoration work on the water bodies around the plant, so that basically it kind of dovetails with the overall piece which we want to concentrate on reducing our water consumption. In addition to that, when we were when we were talking about overall environmental indicators and impact, the other bit, we are also looking at the circularity of how we embrace, not have make waste, but have a circular economy. There we have been working on various initiatives, but one in particular is where we can increase our recycled content in the product mix. So it's basically how we devulcanize rubber in a non-chemical manner and try and use it in our product mix, so make it a little more, we can increase our recycled content as well. So these are some of the pilots that are going, and these are in partnerships with the organizations. Some of them are international organizations. There is a lot of research and development that's happening in this space. But the whole idea is for us to kind of reach a certain level of also making sure that our the product mix, or the product that we are offering to our consumers has a sustainable raw material as well. So that's something we're working towards. So making sure that the biomaterial and the recycled material is amplified and excellent.
I recently read an article which said about how Apollo Tyres has actually they develop the sustainable agri tires, and you've also recently developed the passenger vehicle tires, which are sustainable. Beyond that, actually, I would actually like to go ahead and ask about the mechanism that Apollo Tyres has in place to measure those emissions, actually. Yeah. I'll just kind of talk you through. So in terms of how we measure emissions, and I was just talking to you about the emissions within the manufacturing scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 is outside. So what we've done is back quite a long time back, about 4 years ago, we started to look at our overall emissions from various sources.
Whilst, as I mentioned, 1 and 2 is very, very easy because this is within our boundaries, it's controlled as well. So it's kind of whatever we're using for the manufacturing, that's where we can easily kind of talk through and account for it. The other one, which is the value chain, there are like 15 categories, and we've picked up a few because there is no standardization at the moment. So what we've done is we've actually picked up a few categories. So we report on the 1, 2 and 3 emissions. We've been doing that for the last 4 years, 5 years rather. And to have the authenticity, we actually get it ratified and assured by a third party as well, because we need to make sure that whatever we are publishing in the public domain has got a backing information. It's not just there is some kind of checking, and it's going to help us now because when you see how the disclosures have leapfrogged in the last decade, it's really going to support us in terms of how we go forward. And especially when we have this new thing on BRSR with business responsibility, sustainability reporting, we will, each of these would, there is a assurance that's required as well. So it's going to help us. So that's something we've been doing. We've been not only monitoring, we have a system in place. We've not only been monitoring, but we've actually been getting it assured as well outside. But as I was telling you about the commitments, the commitments for us is also on a regular basis. We are monitoring it. So we also want to see how we can improvise it and whether we need to have some more systems in place to actually see if we can actually take a little, we can actually improve our targets as well, because currently the commitments that we've made is based on whatever investments that have been parked. So that's where this stuff is going on. The one thing I thought I'd highlight over here is currently we have started, and this is very, very new and at a very nascent stage, is how do we measure in-house emissions and how do plants measure their in-house emissions as well. And we have an in-house tool which we've just recently launched, where plants would be able to see based on their energy consumption, fuel consumption, what is the emission they're generated versus what the commitments from them are up till 2026. So that's going to make it a little more seamless so that we don't have to go back and forth, and that's it's in the progress that's recently started. So these are the things that we've taken, we took cognizance of, and then we've started to develop and implement those areas.
We finally come to our last question. And that talks about the triple bottom line. So sustainability is about balancing the economic, the environment, and the social pillars or the factors, as we call it. It can also be called the people, planet, and profit. Can you share some examples on how these things, these factors are integrated at Apollo Tyres with their sustainability strategy?
Sure. So Apollo's sustainability strategy emanates from the three, the triple bottom line, 3 pillars that you spoke about: people, planet, and profit. And when we're talking about all 3, of course, it's understood that each one of them, have its own significance. When we talk about specific indicators, and there's something I thought I'd highlight as well, when we look at the overall strategy, we have within the organization, very early, like about 4-5 years ago, we adopted ISO 26000 framework, which is a framework on social responsibility, which kind of talks about all the indicators, but it's also very important. It's a framework which is basically for how the organization is going to operate responsibly, and overall how sustainability is going to be, dovetailed with it. So that's the framework we adopted, and we looked at, we have like a standardized SOPs as well, standard operating procedures, how we kind of take it forward. But one thing when we talk about Avantika is like, when we look at overall the 3 areas, and you rightly said, how do we take it forward, and what exactly do we mean by it? We very early, and we started to look at that. Basically, we want to bring value to the stakeholders and not to the shareholders. That was very, very evident. So when I talk about stakeholders, and there are lots of examples, but one example is very, very close to my heart, is the stakeholder work that we do through our CSR project in the truck drivers community. And of course, it's a critical stakeholder for us. The truck drivers are, because they're obviously, from the business point of view as well, they're very critical. Right. And also, in terms of when we look at what, they're actually the backbone of the economy. In terms of, and during COVID, you could see there were lots of talks about it, because they're the ones who were actually mobile, and they were the ones who were making things move and reach to a certain destination as well. So when we overall, so that's where our work in the trucking community is very, very essential. And what we started to look at was basically providing them with healthcare needs. So, so there's just a little bit of a background to this. So when we started this piece of work, this was in 2001. There wasn't even a CSR law that time. So we started as providing HIV awareness to the truck drivers community, because that time it was a taboo. Yeah. And there is this huge basically the HIV AIDS was in this community, especially because it was they're mobile, it was on an increase. And there were lots of studies that there basic how we need to move and how we need to work with the mobile population. So we started a healthcare center in 2001, which was only to provide awareness on HIV AIDS and some kind of generic stuff as well, which was required. Over a period of time, we realized that there were other emerging health conditions as well that the drivers were experiencing. And there was a very interesting study that was done, which actually underlined that truck drivers, the accessibility to healthcare services it's very, very minimalistic. It's not as much, and also they have a lot of health conditions they experience because of the long working hours, right. No halt points. All of that contributes to it. So we looked at other emerging health conditions, and this service, which was started only for HIV/AIDS, is now providing services on vision impairment, looking at tuberculosis, because that's again is very, very critical. And India has this thing about making sure elimination of tuberculosis by 2025. So the mobile population is very, very critical over here, and that's where we are working extensively with the Ministry of Health to ensure that tuberculosis is not just we're not just creating awareness, but it's treated as well. So we've got that. We also have other emerging health conditions, which is non-communicable diseases, which is very prevalent in this community, such as high blood pressure, diabetes. So we provide healthcare services for those as well, and generic conditions that come and go along with whatever. So basically across the last 21 years, we have, or rather 22 years, I would say, we have 32 healthcare centers across 19 states of India. Okay. And the drivers community can take healthcare services anywhere. So they just have a card where if they are mobile, they can, if they've had, they've had a service in one center and they go to the other center with that card, they can actually avail that service over there as well. So that's what we have been working in terms of how we make sure that all the indicators kind of work hand in hand with each other. So that's one example that I could think of.
Thank you so much, Renika, for sharing those wonderful insights and about how you're engaging with the community, your employees, and the various stakeholders. Thank you so much for giving us your time, your insights into the sustainability space and Apollo, what they're doing. Thank you so much for having us here today.
Thank you so much, Avantika. Lovely to have you over as well. Thank you for inviting us.